All right, let's talk about election protection. Now, people come to Bob Fitrakis and I because we broke many of the major stories about the theft of the 2004 election in Ohio. And they ask us, what can we do? And I usually, when, long-time activists like us get asked questions like, what can we do? The people who ask us usually expect an answer that doesn't really require them to do anything. In other words, have a bake sale, call your congresspeople, sign a petition. This year, we are very clear, very specific. There's no getting out of this, folks. It's very simple and obvious what you can do. Number one, become a poll worker. We want every precinct in this country to be staffed by poll workers who are committed to a real democratic process where everyone has the right to vote guaranteed, where the process goes smoothly and where the votes are counted, and where things like provisional ballots are not thrown in the trash as they were done in 2004. We have had testimony from people like Victoria Parks, who were poll workers, who saved hundreds of votes in 2004 by simple things. For example, Victoria was in a building that housed two precincts, so two separate precincts were in one building. The people who were running the show had everybody standing in one line, and they would be invariably voting at the wrong precinct, and votes were being trashed. So what Victoria did was, as a poll worker, she had the right. She announced everybody in the line, if you're in this precinct, go in this line. If you're in that precinct, go in that line. Hundreds of votes were saved. And we've had many, many instances like this. We want people to be inside the polls as poll workers. The average age of poll workers has been creeping up to about 85 right now. And, there has been a critical shortage of poll workers. The boards of elections across the country have been desperate for poll workers. Now, in Ohio, poll workers actually get $120 a day for the day. It's a long day. There are training sessions that go on beforehand, but people are paid for those. So you want to know what you can do in this election? Be a poll worker or be a poll judge. Now, it's harder to become a poll judge. There's certain qualifications. In some cases, you actually have to inherit the job of being a poll judge. But poll judges have very tangible power in the vote count, in looking at electronic voting machines, scantrons, paper ballots, provisional ballots, things like that. So if you can be a poll judge, please be a poll judge. We also want election observers. We have won a lawsuit in Ohio where observers from not only the Democrat and Republican parties, but also the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Nader folks are going to be allowed to get into the polls as observers. Just for Ohio? Yes, as far as we know in Ohio, but it may be happening in other states. But poll workers, poll observers in Ohio need not only be Democrats and Republicans now. They can be Greens, Libertarians, and Nader supporters. And this is a big plus. The more people we have observing inside the polling stations, the better off it is. Now, we also want video the vote teams. We want a video the vote team at every precinct in America, if we possibly can. And so sign up with your video the vote crew. There are websites with video vote teams. We also have poll workers for democracy. Come to freepress.org and we will guide you to a video the vote team if that's what you want to do, as opposed to being a poll worker or a judge. Now, prior to the election, we're also having people very focused on the boards of election and the registration process. As we know, there's been quite a bit of caging going on where mailings are being done to voters, and if they for some reason come back, people have been taking the return mail and going to the election boards and getting people knocked off the voter rolls. This has got to be stopped. People can go into the boards of election, observe this process, look at the voter rolls, make sure that people who think they are registered are in fact registered. If there's a discrepancy, a slight discrepancy between your driver's license and the name on the polling book, you can be knocked off. We want people to have that not happen. A lot of people think they're registered to vote and may not be registered to vote. This needs to be double checked. People have been purged in Ohio. We've had 500,000 people purged from the voter rolls. This has to be stopped. So people need to go in to the boards of elections in an organized fashion, examine the voter rolls, and make sure the things are properly taken care of. We also now have a federal requirement or a federal approval of the requirement that people have photo ID. This we consider a poll tax. We think the Supreme Court decision allowing this to happen was wrong. It was based on an Indiana law, but the Supreme Court did uphold it. And so in many states, people will be required to have photo ID. And this is something, if people are registered to vote and they don't have photo ID, people who are concerned and committed citizens can go out and help these people get photo ID. Drive them to where they need to get photo ID. This is a big issue, and it will make many millions of people may lose their ballot if they don't have photo ID, so that we need to try and get that. So those, prior to the election, checking the registration rolls, helping people get photo ID, becoming a poll worker, becoming a poll judge, joining the video vote team, all those things are very important. And then after the election, of course, we want observers to watch the vote count, and we also want to have the establishment of public hearings. After the 2004 election, we had a series of public hearings. People, and I did this, were sworn in so that your testimony became a legal document, admissible in court. And what we want to do is, prior to the elections, have it set up so that people will know if there are irregularities, if there are problems with the vote. You can go to a public hearing, you can be sworn in by a bailiff or a lawyer, and then and give testimony. And then that testimony will be admissible in court. It was used in the King, Lincoln, Bronzeville lawsuit where we've run some important decisions. Like I say, I was denied an absentee ballot prior to the election of 2004. I gave testimony under oath. That testimony was used. I was a plaintiff in a lawsuit, and it's very significant. We had about 1,000 sworn testimonies and written affidavits that were usable. We want to have people be prepared to do that after the election of 2008, so that if in fact it's stolen again, we will have this legal documentation. So there are some things that people can do. There's no begging off. There's no escaping this time, folks. It's very clear what you can do to help preserve this election. Go out and do it, please. We cannot afford another stolen presidency. Thank you very much.